Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
I'm Susie Von Slaughter.
I'm Ian Fuego.
I'm Marcia.
And we're here to do a Patreon requested review. Actually, technically this wasn't requested as a review, it was requested as a commentary, but we decided to do a review anyway because we just did the commentary, and that is for Hellraiser by Clive Barker. And this is sponsored, of course, by J.R. Hamantashen, who wrote this horror anthology book, a deep horror that was very nearly all. This is actually the third in a series of horror anthology books.
And his last one, from what he says in the introduction.
Hamantashen has written, and we're going to be doing a review of this coming up in the very near future, but that's what we're doing. They sponsored this episode, so let's get into this review. And honestly, I've seen this movie a bunch of times. I might have enjoyed it the most this time watching it with you guys. Because it actually moved a lot more. I actually used to think that this was a bit boring, and I got tired of the whole Julia, melodrama and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed it this time. I really like this movie. It's classic horror. It's some of the... Really?
There you go. The Production Village, Cricklewood, London. Do you know where that is, Suze? Cricklewood?
Alright, so I think the movie is really, really good. The gore is on point. It's a classic, and it's obviously something that was built on many, many times over, so I loved it. Your overall thoughts, Susie?
I have always loved this movie. I am a huge fan, as you guys know, of practical effects. So I think that's when I first time ever watching this, that's what the main thing that drew me in were the practical effects. So always loved watching it, still love watching it. So yeah.
Okay, Fuego?
Yeah, this is one that I'm actually in your side of the camp about. The previous times I've watched it, I don't think I've ever watched this with a group of people before. It's always been solo by myself. And I have never really, I know, which is very befitting of some of the storytelling. But this movie never wowed me, but I knew that in the pantheon of horror, it's very well regarded, and I always pointed to the second one as being better for that sheer fact, but I do feel like I gained a little bit more of an appreciation for it. And while I do prefer the uncut version, which doesn't trim some of the gore, I still feel like the scenes of tension and the storytelling are actually really, really good in this. And I like the design of the Cenobites, and they're all cool. And Jesus wept. I mean, come on, man.
Marcia?
This movie is a lot more fun to watch with people because when I watched it by myself, I'm like, I don't understand why Pinhead's so scary to people. And I'm still not really scary, but this is really gross.
She's not scared by Pinhead, but she's scared by Jesus.
I'm never scared.
Yeah.
Scary.
Jesus made her jump.
Scary.
Yeah,
I jumped for
Jesus
Jesus
jump.
for sure. But no, there's some fun aspects about this movie, and it's very enjoyable to watch when you get to the practical effects, and they do some really interesting things that you don't get in any other series. So I still enjoy it on that kind of level. I don't feel like it's scary at all, but I can see if I watched this at a younger age, it would definitely leave some scars. So
Yeah, I didn't see it at a young age.
Yeah, I think absolutely it's scary for those that are watching it for the first time or of an overly, back in the day, or of an overly religious disposition, they would have a big problem with it, but I loved it. So let's get into, obviously, just real quick, the story, if you guys don't know. It's about Julia and her husband who move into this house where the husband's brother, Frank, was squatting, but has since disappeared. They don't know why. And when the husband accidentally cuts himself and bleeds in this particular room, Frank starts to get reconstituted in the flesh, and apparently he went to hell and is in the process of trying to escape. Julia has to bring him victims in order to use the victim flesh to reconstitute his own flesh. And then the husband's daughter, Kirsty, gets brought into the story and ultimately has to have a showdown against Julia and Frank.
And we must mention the fact that the reason Julia is willing to help Frank out is because they had this little fling-a-ling where he gave her the ding-a-ding, and yeah, she's still she walks right into the house, and she's immediately just overwrought with recollections of where he showed up and just took it to Pound Town, and so yeah, he obviously left an impression, and so that's why she's willing to bring him guys to kill so he can regenerate. I mean,
I thought it was gonna end on that.
Oh, I love you, Jaime. I love you.
So what does everyone think of how the story progressed? I mean, again,
it's okay.
It's a great origin story.
Yeah.
I like the second and third movie a little bit better myself. The third is way over the top cheese.
Yeah.
But
that the one
I
at the
like the
club?
second one a little bit better. Yeah, it's not the club.
Oh.
But this is a great, bedrock for an entire series to be built on. Honestly.
I can make your bed rock.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Careful.
that could have been bad.
What?
Drunk baby's drunk.
Yeah.
Marcia, what do you think of the?
You're drunk.
The story?
Go home.
I mean, I think they had to start somewhere, and that's where they started. And yeah, no, I mean it's all right. I mean I remember finishing watching this movie, going, I still don't know anything about Pinhead, and I don't know why the Cenobites are the way they are. And they give a brief thing, and I'm like, why is everybody so scared? And I don't know. I felt like it was more about Julia and Frank and the escape of the Cenobites than it was actually about the lore, which I guess that is the point. I don't know. It was all right.
That's one nice thing about the second movie, though, is they do give you a lot more explanation and background about the mythology of the other world that the Cenobites come from and everything. And I mean,
I mean that was the intention, though, right?
Well, yeah,
For
eventually.
multiples.
I think Barker scripted the second one, right? I don't think he scripted any of the other ones after that.
I think so. But I mean, again, you just take this for what this was. What did you think, Susie? Story-wise.
Well, you gotta start somewhere. And with the rise of kind of horror movies, like the peak was in the 80s, so for what it is, I can appreciate it as that stepping stone because Hellraiser Pinhead is such an iconic character, and the story is more developed into the second movie. And like I said, with all the intentions of that happening, I think it's a good introduction to kind of what's going on. Yeah, it can kind of leave you like, what the fuck? But no, it is what it is. I just love the practical effects and yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the acting. I obviously the Cenobite acting is great. Julia does her darndest. She's very good for the time, and her husband the same. I actually really like Kirsty a lot.
Same.
Everything else is pretty much
Same.
Can be taken or leaving. That's not a word.
I like the third guy that she slutted herself out with, and then and the way he died. I thought he did that with
his performance
great
was, with
great
grace.
honor. Great honor in that one.
What about the acting for you guys?
Same. You pretty much covered it. No, I agree with you.
Okay.
Cecil.
I love Julia and her earrings.
Yeah, you're pretty distracted by that.
I was very distracted with her earrings. They were and the mullet.
Fredo, your thoughts on the acting?
Fierce.
I think both of the women definitely stand out the most. The brother Frank, he's very amusingly over the top in his oozing of machismo in the scenes where we see him where he's like in his original form as opposed to in the blood-riddled form. And I was trying to figure out if it was the same actor
guys.
Under prosthetics or not.
It's
it was
two separate.
two separate people.
If you look in the credits, there's
That's
Frank and then
curious
Frank
about,
the
yeah.
monster.
That's
two
why I
different
brought it
guys.
out. Yeah. So okay, so that's not surprising, but yeah, the weakest link probably being the derp to derv husband / father who is very oblivious to so much that's going down. But yeah, I mean, it's not performances that we're gonna win Oscars or anything, but they serve the story well enough, and that's all that we really need in this case because this is world building, like you guys were saying, for later expansion. I thought
franchise. I thought the father did an excellent job, especially at the end.
He's not bad, but that was his time to shine. When he was possessed by Frank was wearing we're not going to spoil anything, but
yeah, no spoiler.
Yeah, for 1987.
Wearing Frank's skin.
So let's talk about the effects then, because I think the effects and the sound are definitely something we need to
know.
The effects, Susie mentioned practical. There's some digital enhancements towards the end when the Cenobites are sent away in a very 80s fashion.
Yeah.
But even those are still not. I mean, they're not great. But
they
terrible.
have an essence of charm to them. It almost reminded me a little bit of where like the person's being vaporized.
Yeah,
and,
weird science.
No, in Season of the Witch when we watch that and like the bug comes in, it's got like the radioactivity emanating whatever, and it looks just very I don't know. It looks 80s, but there's I don't know. I still like it.
But all of the makeup effects are incredible. I mean, all the Cenobites, obviously, all the gore, all of the practical skeletons and messed up nastiness that we see.
The various versions of Frank are all interesting. Whether he's just covered in blood or whether he's so defleshed, like you still see bone and whatnot. And I mean, all of his iterations are all well done.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the music. I thought the music is super iconic for Hellraiser too. I mean, and all of the sounds and
the sounds are what we were.
Yeah.
When Frank's walking around skinless, and like all the gross, the drips.
And that's something.
Slurps and
one of the last times that we all did one of these commentaries where we were listening with headphones the entire time. I think we're privy more so to those little sonic nuances than we are when we're just normally watching it coming from a TV. Like you hear that full mix a little more so, and I'm like, ew, I'm hearing the little. Kind of
very
shit.
gross. So gross.
Well, I mean, what about the actual, all the cool sound cues, the gonging bells, when the Cenobites appear, and
it's
that kind of weird sound effect, like otherworldly sounds that they put in to really make it sound like hell is coming.
Yeah, well, it's like a gate is opening, and these evil peeps are coming for you. I mean, we've dropped the term iconic a lot in this review, but it deserves that word. It deserves that word. It really does. It's in the pantheon. It's in the lexicon of popular culture for a reason. So.
Definitely sets a precedent.
The interesting thing, and if you guys check, we've done 3 episodes of Startling Storytime where I actually am going through and reading The Hellbound Heart, and if I'm not mistaken, they introduced Pinhead in the 3rd episode, and they described Pinhead as a female figure in the story.
That's what you told me.
So that's a bit of a difference, but obviously Doug Bradley does a fantastic job, and no one's been able to match him since.
Well, we get a scary female Cenobite as well in here anyway. So,
absolutely.
I mean,
with that weird vagina thing in her throat.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything, but
it's like, and then it gurgles, and you're kind of like, ew.
Is it queefy?
It's she queefing?
The Queef Sisters. That's disgusting.
Well, I don't know. Any final thoughts from you guys on everything?
No, when you take away the cheese, and I think there's a lot in this movie that, makes it what it is and why people love it so much. And the sound design, I think, between the sound design and the practical effects is what I really enjoy about this movie. The story itself isn't overwhelming, and it doesn't make me I don't think that the story itself carries it through 10 movies, but that's just me. But the cool idea of it, and having these Cenobites and the hell coming after you and being torn to pieces, and it's for your pleasure and pain. I think that's pretty interesting, and I do think they do carry that aspect of it. But yeah, it's not my favorite series though.
I think the paper-thin aspect that you're referencing here is the fact that it's based on a novella. It's not like they were combing from a ton of information, and it's the writer adapting his own material. So, I mean, yeah, it moves briskly, and it sets the groundwork, and that's about all that we really need. But yeah, it's more so iconic for me based on the design of the villains, the mythology behind everything, as opposed to performances or.
Well, yeah, I think the thing with me is the mythology is not really that much explained,
not developed here, just
which
yet.
Takes away. It takes a few movies to really get it to, and I think that's too long.
And even
personally.
then, how well do they really know it? I mean,
right.
Susie, any final thoughts from you?
Nope, you guys pretty much covered it. I was sitting here thinking about it while you guys were talking, and I was just like, no, that's fine. Well, that's right.
She's like, I love it, and my seat's wet.
Right.
Doug Bradley.
Bradley.
Well, we can call it there then. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you are not a patron yet, please click the link in the description box down below if you want to join the ranks and tell us movies to do like this one. Special thanks again to SK for requesting the commentary for Hellraiser. And thanks again to J.R. Hyman-Tashin for sponsoring this episode with his book. his or her book. I keep doing that. A deep novel,
Because
or
we
I'm sorry, a
just
deep
don't know.
horror.
I feel like
that
you need
was
to
very
clarify
near me
that.
awe. The link is in the description box down below. It is a horror anthology book, and we will be putting out a review very soon for it.
Yes.
If it's not already available. So thank you guys very much for watching. Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
I'm Susie Von Slaughter.
Gracias, Jaime. Fuego.
Marcia Parker.
And remember,
Stay scared. I'll see you in hell.